Hi there, welcome to Penny Saves Paldea, where I take the fails of Scarlet and Violet and turn them into a generous dose of copium-laced fanfiction. I've been including 3 fails in each video up until now, but the priority is always to make a fun and interesting story, and sometimes less is more. So this is one of those times I'll use 2 fails instead. Let's see what they are. For our logic fail, we have We Don't Talk About Other Plotlines. Scarlet and Violet do an amazing job of balancing the 3 different plots in a way that lets you complete them in any order you please. The downside, however, is that each plot needs its own cast of side characters, and none of them can have major interactions with the cast from a different plotline. It creates this weird illusion that nobody knows each other, but presumably some of the Team Star bosses challenged the various gyms while they were at school, and Nimona certainly knows some of them from replacing Giacomo as the student council president. It's even suggested that Team Star had a hand in getting her the position. While it's more of a stretch for Arven, his parents' initial funding had to come from somewhere, and we already know who the 2 richest families in Paldea are. So odds are decent Arven met one of these 2 long before he started at the academy, and for the sake of drama, I'm going to make it the person he is least likely to get along with. For our glitch alert, we have the replicating Rhydon. There have been several replication glitches in this game. For the most popular one, you'd put your bike lizard into battle form holding an item, then quick catch a Pokemon to replace it in your party. If you hit A-B quickly together, the game would get confused, ask you where you wanted its held item to go, and clone your ride. By putting the clone into your party and swapping between battle and ride form, you could go into your boxes again and again, and your Rhydon would be holding a new copy of the item every time. There's some awesome walkthroughs I'll link to, but as for how this would play out in canon, let's say Ortega's family might be getting rich from more than just their clothing brand. Let's get this story started. If you need a refresher on the setup here, Team Star has noticed all the weird stuff happening around Paldea, and they're gathering the most affected people at the Fairy Crew's base. They're especially interested in Arven, who can move through objects seemingly at will. Penny is with the group, but she hasn't been revealed as Cassiopeia just yet. She's on her way to check in with Ortega and Arven, and she's about to discover there's some bad history there. In the confusion of the giant olive fiasco, Penny loses track of both Arven and the grunt showing him in. Nothing to be concerned about, she assures herself. The nice thing about being in charge of Team Star is that every crew boss sends her layouts of their respective bases for approval before building them. She likes to imagine herself touring each place, even if she's never gotten the nerve to do it in person until now, which means she can easily find Ortega's tent with 0 assistance. Or rather, find his office, as he likes to refer to it. Every Team Star boss has their quirks. Atticus has a centuries-old vernacular, Mela enjoys wearing boots she can barely walk in, and Ortega refuses to acknowledge the difference between a professional workroom and a tent in the middle of nowhere. Then there's me, their leader, who refuses to speak to her closest friends face to face. Penny sighs and walks across the damp grass, taking a longer path behind the scaffolding to avoid the clusters of socializing Team Star members. She won't be this nervous when she speaks to Ortega and Giacomo. After all, she knows them quite well. It's just all these strangers she doesn't feel comfortable with. Strangers who've found a home here. Team Star is doing exactly what she intended. Students have a place to come when school makes them feel inadequate. Penny smiles at the thought. Then she realizes Ortega's tent, trimmed with gold and pink ribbons at the edges, stands only a few yards in front of her. As she approaches the entrance, Ortega's authoritative tone stands out first, even if his words aren't quite clear yet. He isn't happy. A muttering voice answers, but it's difficult to follow. The guard outside the tent stands unfazed by the conversation inside. In fact, he seems downright distracted. The lanky teenager shifts his weight from one foot to the other as he cranes his neck to search over his shoulder. Wait, did you just appear here? Or did you walk up? Walked, Penny assures him. You were staring the other way. Right, he says, rubbing the back of his head. Sorry. See, I'm trying to find this researcher person. I was supposed to bring her to the boss, and then... Penny timidly raises her hand. That would be me. Relief pours over the guy's face. Really? Oh, that's awesome. Go in. He motions her forward, and Penny takes a deep breath. The conversation inside goes quiet for a moment, but when she pulls back the tent flap, the volume escalates.
And anyway, no one told me you were the one I was coming to see,
Arven is saying. Penny moves inside and stands off to the corner. Ortega really does have the tent done up like a personal office. An outdoor carpet spread across the ground, a mahogany desk with a banker's lamp, and shelving with an array of medals from all the activities his parents have shoved him into. He picks up a silver medal for rapid-ass dressage and swings it back and forth.
Oh, really? You got all the way out here and no one mentioned my name even once?
No, they didn't. I got a lot of yammering about your Radish squad, but past that...
Ortega slams the medal onto the desk, shaking the lamp.
It's Rukba Squad. I swear, is everything about food with you?
Oh, sorry.
Arven crosses his arms and rolls his eyes. Is cooking too pedestrian a topic for your sensitive rich boy ears?
Spare me the insults. Those are pedestrian.
Ortega's gaze shoots over to Penny.
You're the researcher?
She nods, unsure what else to do. Ortega has a short fuse, sure, but he generally keeps it under control around strangers. The better he knows someone, the more likely he'll blow his top. So far, this conversation suggests he and Arven know each other quite well.
Well, you might as well go back outside and wait. Our lead here might be too stuck up to actually help us.
I'm stuck up. I'm stuck up.
Yes, you are. Good to know you listened to at least one thing I said.
Arven groans and stomps out of the tent. The cooking utensils dangling from his pack clang and clatter together with every step. They don't get much quieter when the tent flap closes. Ortega remains seated at his desk and makes no attempt to follow.
Well, at least we'll hear if he leaves the base,
he mutters. He returns the medal to its place on the shelf and leans forward, burying his face in his hands.
They just told me there'd be 2 students coming. I didn't get their names. Of all the stubborn, annoying...
He shakes his head.
I know I should try to get along with him, but...
It's okay if you don't. I mean... The words spill out of Penny without thinking. Ortega watches her expectantly, even hopefully, like she might have actual good advice. Well, she at least owes him her best shot. You can't get along with everyone. Friendships don't last forever. Some don't last long at all. I think it's better to spend your time finding a good one than trying to hold on to a bad one, you know? Ortega smiles just a bit.
Funny. You sound like somebody I know.
I do? Sweat drips down the back of Penny's neck. She's been so focused on making sure no one recognizes her face, she hasn't thought about her voice. Or her words. Ortega continues.
If you're who I think, then I'd like to say how glad I am I met you in person, and how grateful I am for Team Star. It gives me a place where he'll just accept me as me.
Penny's first instinct is to deny everything, but then a quieter part of her mind insists that it doesn't matter if Ortega's figured her out or not. He needs to talk, and as his friend, she should be here to listen.
My family, well, most people expect me to act a certain way, coming from that, you know?
He says, watching the tent flap sway in the breeze.
Arven and I were so close when we were little, but then some stuff happened, and he took it in the worst possible way. I feel like if I'd just been a regular kid, he would have listened.
He stands and opens the top drawer on the desk. Inside sit several pastel-colored boxes, each tied up with golden ribbon. The top box has the ribbon undone, and Ortega lifts it out and tips open the lid in a single motion.
Want a rare candy? I have like dozens of them.
Penny's eyes widen. Rows of colorful sweets sit nestled in silvery wrappers before her. She picks one up and turns it side to side. There's no mistaking the candy's signature rainbow pattern with its glistening sugary shell. This is the genuine article. She stares dumbfounded at the box full of at least 24 of them. How? Ortega picks out a candy for himself, closes the box, and drops it haphazardly back into the drawer.
My dad's using one of the anomalies to replicate these like crazy. Apparently, if you let one of his special Cyclozards hold one, then get on to ride, then throw a quick ball at the nearest wild Pokemon, then get off and on again a bunch of times, the Cyclozar will clone whatever it was holding. At least, I think that's how it works.
Penny nods and gingerly tucks the candy into her pocket. At another time, she might have pressured Ortega to tell his father how dangerous playing with the anomalies could be. But for now, she keeps her worries to herself. Her friend has enough on his mind. Navigating relationships always feels like this confusing web of code in a language no one will teach her. It feels good to be around people who give her the time and space to learn. And it feels even better to return the favor, giving them the time and space to unwind their own troubles, as friends do. Alrighty, that's all for now. Thanks to Mad Hat for voicing Ortega and Cabañas for the cover art, and of course to Stick Studios for the outro. I'll actually be doing an FAQ video next to shorten down on some of the recap stuff at the start of each chapter, so that'll be in 2 weeks. Until then, happy reading and happy training.